Hi, and welcome to Whole Soul School and Foundation's second podcast for Mind, Body, Spirit Fitness. I am Marie Mohler, and I'm the host and co-founder of today's heart-centered conversation. I'm joined today by Sue Wells. She is an Australian, and she lives in New Zealand. From birth, for her whole life, she has felt that she was here to work with Source, with the light, with God as her highest purpose. And that has taken many forms. It's manifested in many forms. She's been a meditation teacher, a church worker, and a light worker and bringer of light in her own community. And so I'd like to welcome you, Sue, today to the call. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. I'm really, really excited to have this opportunity to share with you and with others all about what's happening now.
Yes. And today, I think one of the things we wanted to focus on as a topic that I think is something that a lot of us are experiencing is this concept of inner discernment, and this concept of having the discernment to look within our own vibration to know the truth. Because in our world today, with all the energies running around on the planet and all of our devices that are constantly running and all the stimuli we have going on around us all the time, Sue, you know, there's this feeling sometimes of distraction, and there's this feeling of there's just energy around us all the time. But discerning what truly is our vibrational truth from the inside out, I think, is something that we're all going to be called more and more to have to learn and cultivate and express within ourselves. And so I wanted to open that up with you today to talk a little bit more about this very important concept of that discerning the truth.
Yeah, look, it's a topic that I'm learning, I'm playing with.
Yes.
It's something that I used to be very, very strong at, and in my own journey of walking the earth, I've been through various challenges, and one of the challenges that I co-created was to go through a phase in my life where I abandoned listening to that inner voice.
Wow.
And knowing that inner discernment, and mistakenly doing it because I believed I was serving the light.
Wow.
Yeah, so that journey brought lots of other amazing light into my life, but it came at a very, very heavy price for me, because I lost that inner awareness, that inner voice, that inner attunement that gives me and has the ability to give everybody the ability to know your truth, to know what's right for you, to listen in and go inwards and be clear and be discerning against, and at times even when you are the only one who sees it, who knows it.
Yes.
So I had that intuitively as a child, and through into my adult life, and it served me in ways that brought a lot of grace to my life and avoided many, many pitfalls that would have potentially destroyed me. But as I said, I as part of a commitment to the light in the path I was following, I mistakenly allowed myself to override that, believing I was doing the right thing, believing that by listening to other people and people who I thought were in a position of authority and knew what they were doing,
Yes.
I went against that. And now more than ever, we need it.
Yes.
I need it.
Yeah. It's coming around. It is.
Yeah. So I've spent the last year and a half, 2 years, rebuilding that and reawakening that and relearning to trust my own inner voice, and to trust that no matter how amazing, how beautiful, how dedicated what I'm doing is in service to light and source,
Yes.
nothing should overwrite your own inner voice, because there is where the light truly lies. And there is where the truth truly lies for me
Yes.
and for others.
It's absolutely true. It is.
Yeah.
I've always felt it. What we're talking about here with that inner voice, that inner discernment, it is like a shining inner golden compass that is completely connected to source and our highest vision for this life and our highest vision for our light expressing itself in this life. And when I remember too, same thing as you, Sue, that I was very tuned into it as a child. And I think in many ways, sometimes in our upbringings and in the educational system, there's this, I don't know, there's at some point in time for many of us, I think could relate to this, that it flips. It's sort of, instead of listening to that inner world so much, we start to listen more to the world around us to reflect back who we are and who we might be and who we're supposed to be. And then we go through a period of time, don't we, where there's some conditioning and we get a little bit rewarded even, or reinforced for listening to the outer world and not our own voice, because that's the way, in some ways, that our global culture has worked, is listening to the people outside you, and listening to the mindset or the beliefs of the group, really, right?
Mm.
That sense of having that perfect, timeless, amazingly wise inner sense of what is right for us as a unique individual and is right, that exists in everyone else. Like you're saying, Sue, we all have access to that inner voice, but we do go through, I think many of us, and there might be waves of it. It might not just be one wave of it. We might go through it a few times. But I think when we step away from listening to our inner voice, it's part of practicing our own personal valuing of it. So when we step away from it and we live without it for a little while, we see what that creates, and it gives us perspective on what happens when we listen and when we don't listen.
Mm. Mm. It does. It does. And, I feel like there's also a really close relationship with learning to love and trust ourselves
Yes.
and inner discernment. And,
Yes.
we have a world now where um, loving ourselves, I think, is very distorted.
Yes.
We do not, as people, encourage ourselves to love ourselves.
Yes.
And without that, I feel that it's very, very easy to undermine our own inner truth. And we
Yes.
live in a world where everywhere we turn, we have a hierarchy. There is the person who is in charge, who is the authority or the expert, the person who is knowing.
Yes.
And then there are the people who are surrounding that person, who may also contribute in very valuable ways. But we do work hierarchically as well. And I feel that that also contributes to us not wanting to listen to our own inner knowing,
Yes.
not wanting to speak up when we should. Because the truth is that people who speak up often pay a price.
Yes.
Whistleblowers is a really easy example to give,
Yes.
where we, as a planet, we actually have a term
Yes.
called whistleblowers. And in Australia, I was born and raised in Australia and lived there till my late 20s. Australian culture is very much of the you don't dob in your mates. And we as a culture don't necessarily like to give in to distorted authority, but we also don't believe in betraying people.
Yes.
So that's a really simple cultural example of where your own inner discernment has a huge cultural barrier that
Yes.
can actually prevent you from speaking up
That's
and living your truth.
that's right.
And we are now coming into a time on the planet where survival is going to be dependent on our ability to tune into ourselves and know our truth.
Yes.
And that is on every level. That's on the level of the choices we make about the company that we keep, the
Yes.
choices we make about where we live, what we do for a living, who we associate with, even something as simple as when I get up in the morning, do I leave my house? When I leave my house, what direction do I go in? They're all things that we do automatically,
Yes.
but if we do them on auto with no attunement to ourselves, no listening in,
Yeah.
not only do we miss potential opportunities for ourselves,
Yes.
we also have lost that ability to know ourselves. Because being on auto mode is also a way of shutting down,
Yes.
because there is a lot happening on the planet at the moment. There's a lot of change, there's a lot of uncertainty. And you talked right at the beginning about the world of devices that we live in.
Yes.
Don't we all love our devices? I love my phone and my computer and Netflix and Amazon Prime and all of those wonderful things. And they're like really obvious examples of how we numb ourselves down and shut ourselves out at times, because it can be too much, it can be overwhelming.
Yes. And how
But
we
just,
disconnect,
yeah,
how we disconnect
yes,
in many ways.
yes, yes,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. And
um,
there's always another invitation to something else, some other opportunity, or some other connection, or some other distraction that would disconnect us from really spending some quality time in our day. We could 24 hours be distracted. The
mm,
opportunity is certainly there, and yet that's why a lot of people who are connected in some way, who are listening in some way to that still small voice inside, to that inner light, that compass that can guide us if we just find the time to let it. A lot of people find that space when they go into nature, um,
mm,
right? When they just quiet the busy world outside of us long enough to listen. um, and some of us are in such a habit with our devices that we might even have to consciously make a new habit. Some things in our lives where we don't have to have these busy devices going on. We all use them and we all love them and appreciate them for the many things that they can do. But there is this sense of, almost as a global collective and a culture, we have to learn how discern. We have to discern how and when to turn those devices off, so that we have those quiet times, that we can take a walk in nature, even if it's for 5 or 10 minutes a day, and just take a breath and just notice. I've noticed something, Sue, in my life, that I'm not outside in the evenings much anymore. For whatever reason in my life, I just don't go outside much at night. I must be doing other things. But when I've made it a point to go outside, I actually have looked up at the stars, and I'm amazed at like how much I don't see, because I simply don't look up at that hour. And
mm,
I think that's true for a lot of us, that we're either so looking at our devices, or we're so caught up in the culture that is rapidly, influencing our lives today, that we almost have to instill these still points again, that we allow ourselves to take a shower or to take a bath, and we don't put on music, and we don't have a device or a podcast playing, and we just let ourselves have the stillness in that time with the sacred element of water,
mm,
providing life force and a way of connecting with all levels of our spirit as we start our day. And so you can see, people like you and me talking about the value of this interconnection point. There are many of us, myself included, that I have gotten caught up in the rat race and the hectic pace out there, that will just continue to spin if I don't create my own intervention, and if I don't make some time so that I make sure that I connect to my heart, to the light inside me, to that voice that's guiding my life and has a higher sense of purpose and meaning in the unique gifts that I have.
Mm.
I have to make that time in a world that um, doesn't create space for that very often in our lives today. And I think that's a big part of what's going to be evolving and emerging again, a renaissance, if you will, of coming back to that, to valuing that space of that inner connection that we all so miss so deeply, I think. And that's why we're on our devices, because we're looking everywhere for a place to connect, right? And
Mm.
and deeply it's that first, it's that connection with ourselves, because when we center in ourselves, we're more able to fully be present and show up with the other people in our lives, in our work and in our families and in our communities, and we actually have life force to give, because it's coming from a real place of the divine. And so it's so it's just so incredible to me. And I wanted to follow up with you, Sue, when you talked about that time in your life that you stepped away, um, from that voice. I would imagine, I'd love to hear just a little bit more about what that was like for you, and then the coming back.
Mm. Yes. Well, look, as I mentioned, when it happened, my motivation actually came from a place of intended purity.
Uh-huh.
I was doing it, I believed, in service to the light. And it was part of an awakening process that I was going through. I was fully involved in meditation at the time, which is an incredible tool.
Yes.
Meditation is something that at this time actually is a really powerful way of people just tuning in and discerning and listening into their own voice and their own truth.
Yes.
However, for me, as part of that process of letting go and allowing for myself to be open to that, um, I inadvertently mistook that for also allowing myself to not listen to my own voice.
Mm.
When we meditate, we do so from a space which is about allowing ourselves to be beyond human form and beyond sound, voice, pictures, feelings, movement. And in doing so, it opens up you to source and the experience of being beyond form, beyond movement. So you're very much here on the planet, and you're engaged with the world, but you actually experience life as one thing, just as source. And
Mm.
there's an awareness that comes with that of this experience, this beingness that is there all the time. It never goes away.
Mm.
So that's an essence of why meditation is such a powerful experience and why it is something that many people, whether they're spiritual or not, are called to at least tap into for a few minutes each day. And
Yes.
I completely and utterly support that. I think it's a very, very important and viable way for people to access their own authentic being.
Yes.
Um, for me, however, I, in doing so, also listened to the advice of people saying to me, you might be wrong. Uh, you have a particular clear fixed idea about something, but be open to the idea that anything is possible. Be open to the fact that you could be mistaken. Be open to the thought that you could be wrong. There could be a different way. And
Yeah.
I took that on board from the right space, and it was given with the right intention
Yes.
about being open to source and open to what is there to happen. And I took that and I started overriding my own inner gut. I'd have an instinct about something. I felt uncomfortable. It didn't sit right. I sensed that it would not work out well. Um, but because of these messages I'd been given from other people, to
Yeah.
be open to the possibility that I could be wrong, open
Yeah.
to the possibility that there is more than this, I went, oh, okay, I might be wrong. Let's just see what happens. And I got into this habit of repeatedly overwriting that.
Wow.
And through those decisions, given from a place, as I said, of intent to serve the light, of intent to be the light, to open myself to accept and experience everything that Source has and is and can be, I mistakenly thought that that meant not listening to myself. Yet the irony is that we are Source. And
Yeah.
it's actually one of the fundamental tenets of meditation teaching, funnily enough, that we are Source. And so by tuning that out, I
Yeah.
devalued myself. I
Yes.
devalued my own authentic being.
Mm.
I devalued the potential that, as a being who is more than just a human in physical form, that I already had this ability and this gift to tune in and know what my higher source, my higher self was telling me. And it became a habit of me to do this because I believed I was doing what was right for Source, what was right for the light. And so, in some levels, and in some very, very, very powerful ways, I had an amazing, amazing experience of being fully present, filled with love and light, and one with Source and the earth. But there was a part of me that was telling me that there were some things I needed to do differently.
Yeah.
And I wasn't listening to that. And the longer I didn't listen to it, the more my life unraveled. In spite of the fact that I was being so supported, I was so aware, I was so present, my life flowed in some ways and fell apart increasingly in others, till it got to the point where everything in my life began toppling over.
Mm.
Um,
Wow.
yeah, I lost my home, I lost my partnership, I couldn't pick up a job, everything was going wrong. And I was in this space of incredible light and love. And I don't mean mentally, I mean my being, my whole being. I was completely filled and surrounded with this light and this love, but everything was falling apart. Everything had fallen apart. And so I would tune in and ask for guidance. And I'd just sit there and I could feel and I could sense all this light and this love. And there was in my gut this voice that was saying to me, you need to do these 3 things. And one of those things you need to do is you need to move away from the path of meditation because there's something else for you.
Wow.
And I was getting this voice and I was like, oh, but that's just me. Because here I am. I'm having, in spite of my whole life being a train wreck, I am in this incredible space. I
Yeah.
mean, anybody out there who has experienced any form of unity consciousness will understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
What an incredible experience it was, and but in doing so, I wasn't listening. And I know that sounds contrary,
Yes.
but the point I'm trying to get to here
Yeah.
is that even in service to the light, the ultimate service to the light can only work if you tune in to your own divine voice and being
Yes.
and listen and follow that guidance, because only then will you fully align to the authentic self of who you are, and only then will you really be able to discern the truth of what is right for you. Because truth isn't absolute. We
Yes.
believe it and we work in a system that operates like that, but
Yes.
it's not absolute. So fortunately, uh, I had a get together with some light worker friends, and I presented my challenge to them. And one of them, who is a very powerful clairvoyant and channel, said to me that you're not listening. Now, I want to tell you that as somebody who was 24/7 tuning in to Source, that was quite the challenge to hear that. And I was just like, wow, what do you mean? But I'm sitting here all the time, la, um, being Source,
Yes.
in this absolute space of no being and being at the same time.
That's
But I
amazing.
listened to the fact that I had heard that,
Yes.
and I got a huge shock, because when she said that to me and I clicked what she meant, my immediate reaction was, oh my goodness, I just thought that was me. I didn't think I should listen to that.
Mm. You had
Yeah.
so devalued it and gotten such in a good habit of not listening that it took a reflection from someone else to get you to turn you back inwards towards yourself.
Yeah, it did. It did. And so
Did
I
that
had to make
reset
some.
you? Did
Mhm.
that reset you?
Look, it started me back on the right direction,
Ah,
and I had to make some big life changes.
yes.
And look, it didn't happen immediately, real time, as we call it.
Yeah, right.
Things did happen quickly, but they still took a bit of time. And so I had to make changes to my life in order to start taking action on what my inner voice was saying to me.
Yes.
And when I say inner voice, I think it's important to say that it doesn't necessarily have to be words. Your own inner voice can present in lots of different ways. It can be a gut instinct, it can be a vibration, it can be a voice, it can just be a simple knowing, simply just knowing.
Yeah.
And I had to relearn to listen to that. And I had to go through a phase of mourning and reassessing, what does it mean for me to be Source, to
Yes.
be the light? How does that look for me? And how does that look for me in a world where there is a lot of attention within the light worker community? We do actually put meditation on a bit of a pedestal in the light worker community. I find at times people, um, as I said earlier, we are in a very hierarchical society. And so we tend to see certain things as like the ultimate.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what I aspire to. Whether that's something in your career, I aspire to be a head of sales, for example, or I aspire to be the world's best marathon runner. It's the same in the light worker community as well. We aspire to be the light. We aspire to be attuned to our guides. We aspire to be free.
Yes.
And so I had to really completely step away from all of that.
Wow.
And that was hard, because, as I said, we live in a world where, even in the light worker community, that is something that we it's kind of like the be all and end all stops there. Every light worker will talk in some form about the value of just tuning in, and we've talked about it now in this conversation, because
Yes.
it's true. It is absolutely true. So that was very deeply challenging for me. How do I rebalance myself and trust myself
Yes.
trust myself that I'm tuning in to source, and do that in such a way that's right for me.
Wow.
Mm,
Yeah.
big challenge.
Big challenge because you had, in a way, we use the word devalue, but in many ways, when you did take in that initial guidance, what if you're wrong? I think that also, in its own way, planted that seed of doubt. What if I am wrong? And it opened you up to the perspectives of others. But in the meantime, a seed was planted to question your own reading of yourself, your own ability to listen and hear yourself clearly. Um, and so that was a journey back to being able
Mm,
to trust that again.
it was. And now I'm in a place where I'm rediscovering and reappreciating that return to a form of inner strength
Yes.
that I lost for a while there.
Yeah.
And now that I'm regaining that, through that, I'm rediscovering how I can align into my own inner knowing and reconnect and recreate what I had originally wanted to do, which is to be a divine human.
Yes.
And that's more than just a fancy title or phrase. It's about awakening to my own self as source in human form, and in doing so, allowing myself to be the light, and in doing that, allowing myself to operate from a space where I am creating heaven on earth.
Hmm.
It sounds lovely, but
Yeah.
it's so much more than a sentence of lovely phrases.
Yes.
It's
It's a living energy.
it's a living energy. It's a living experience of
Yes.
being and loving and creating from a world that we've forgotten,
Yes.
from a world that we destroyed.
Yes.
Sounds harsh to say that,
Yes.
but there is a part of us that knows that's true in some way for each of us. Not necessarily in this lifetime, I'm not saying that, but we collectively made a choice a long time ago
Yes.
to experience a world without that.
Yes.
And that's all we've known. It's all we know. And it's so ingrained, it's so normal, it's so templated. We don't really know yet what it's meant to look like, what it's really meant to be. We get glimpses,
Yep.
we have personal experiences,
Yes.
but we are now at a point on the planet where it's changing, and we are going to be recreating everything so that we are living and being who we were meant to be. Gaia is a living, breathing, experiencing entity in a physical form as a planet.
Yes.
She is our platform of life. And everything we do through her.
Mm.
She's waking up, and doing so, we're part of that journey. We're invited to be part of that journey.
Yes. That's exactly it. We are being invited. We are being, I would even say, in my experience and the way my inner communications come, is that we are being summoned to this place of deeper connection now. And we're going to have to reawaken those skills that have long been dormant that you're talking about, Sue.
Mm,
Yeah, there's an activation and awakening of these skills that we haven't exercised in a long, long time, and they may feel a little rusty or covered up or almost inaccessible, or we might think they don't exist inside of us. Some of us listening to this might say, I have no idea what these women are talking about. In the same vein, what we're talking about exists inside every one of us, and part of part of this inner discernment that we're talking about is this inner voice, this inner light, this inner beingness that we're describing today, is a part of us that is a compass inside us, and it's a connection point with the earth mother, and it's a connection point with the infinite source, and it's a part of who we are. It is who we are. And so, in a world that is so noisy and busy and scheduled and going all hours of the day and night, all the time, 24/7, it is going to have to be something where we do hear that small summoning, that invitation um, to something more meaningful, to something inside us that wants to guide us. And oftentimes we'll know, we might only hear that voice when we are experiencing what you were experiencing, Sue. And I have had my own pockets of experiences of something similar to what you described, when your life was unraveling and you're
mm,
in the middle of the unraveling. Some people listening to this might be in an experience very similar to that, where things are falling apart, um,
mm,
where you have some kind of catalyzing crisis in your life, or something that is ratcheting up and starting to get really loud, where you know somewhere along the way you got pretty far away from who you really are. And those are signals that that inner voice is sending out in your life, trying to call you back to have that inner dialogue again, to have that connection again. And so much of what we're talking about is, how do we find that inner discernment and that connection with our inner voice? How can, I think you said it, Sue, maybe before we started this call, but how can I know what I am being today, as I wake up and I brush my teeth and I get dressed for the day and I'm about to, enter my day? How can I know that what I am being today is the light?
mm, mm. Yeah, yeah.
Right?
And yes, absolutely. And the key to that is learning to tune in to yourself and know what is your own authentic inner being. There are many steps that you can do to create that,
Yeah.
but the key on a daily basis is to have a tool or a technique to bring you back to that space.
Yes.
And there are different ways you can do that, but I would certainly suggest that a starting point for that is an intention. So when you become aware, have the intention. I have the intention to be centered and true to my own authentic being. I have the intention to love myself unconditionally. I
Mm,
have the intention to be tuned and listening to Gaia, Mother Earth.
mm,
That's one step. Those moments that you can take 5 minutes. You mentioned earlier about how you have fallen out of the habit of going outside.
Yes.
at night. It
Yes.
really resonated with me. It's winter here in the southern hemisphere, so it's not warm. But on a clear night, I still go outside. I live in the suburbs, but I'm blessed to have enough space above me to be able to see stars,
Yes.
and enough gaps between the light from the
Yes.
lamps and the windows with lights on to see the stars.
Yes.
And I look up and I connect. And when I say I connect, I open myself up and put my attention and my awareness gently on myself, and then on what is above me, and I just allow myself to center through that.
Yes.
And little things like that will begin to center you.
Yes.
There are other things as well. I mean, look, I've just mentioned a couple of really simple, easy things.
Yes.
Um, there is a certain amount of dedication, I guess, to wanting to do it.
Yeah.
And look, quite honestly, if you have a clear desire in yourself, the opportunities are going to present for you to connect with
Yes.
people, information, to suggest tools and ways you can do that. Most important thing underneath all of that, though, is that whatever tool or technique you're using, that a core part of it for you is learning to just go within and listen to yourself, in your gut, in your heart, in
Yes.
the vibration you experience, to know your truth.
It's so powerful. And I was going to say that intention is often followed or partners with action, because from the intention, we do take action that's in alignment with that intention. And so, if that is taking a still small moment and connecting with our higher self, or taking a moment and connecting with the stars, or taking a moment, a lot of what we're talking about doesn't take a lot of time every day. Um, it's literally, 5 minutes a day. You could recenter and reconnect yourself with your light, with your spirit inside, with your higher guidance, and the wisdom that you've had through all time. It's been waiting there patiently. It never left. It's just waiting for a conversation.
Mm, yes.
Yes.
And synchronicity as well. The universe responds. If you set an intention, start taking active steps, it's amazing what presents, who arrives in your life, the conversations you have, where
Yeah.
suddenly you go, oh my goodness, I can't believe that person just said that to me. That's exactly what my intention was this morning.
Yes.
And challenges as well. Life has challenges in it. As we tune into our own self and our own authentic being, we see more and more what in our life is not aligned to that. That is part of the truth challenge. That is part of the challenge of learning to trust your own discernment.
Yes.
Because when you start to see those things that don't resonate, that seem to be not quite right for you, you then have choices around what actions you take there as well. It's an ongoing, living, breathing way of existing. And it's a key tool for all of us as we traverse this change, to tune in, to listen, to take action, to see what happens and come back, start the process again. And hey, look, I'm relearning this,
Yes.
and sometimes I don't quite get it right. But the key is that I'm coming back every time to myself and re-listening in, so that when I don't quite get it right, I can redirect myself.
Yes. And part of that, Sue, is then communicating with yourself and with the universe and with spirit that you are valuing the guidance. So even when the guidance that comes is uncomfortable, or puts a choice point in front of you that you weren't that was unexpected, that's testing those skills a bit. It's really just the universe and really other versions of you in the experiences you're having, reflecting back to you the journey that you're on, that you want to connect at a deeper level, that you want to pay attention to the feedback that you're getting from your vibrational choices and how you're showing up each day. And it's so powerful when you start to learn how to, where you start to even be interested in looking to connect the dots of your day, where you set the intention and then you notice those synchronicities, you notice what happens in your day, that leads you on a certain journey for the day. That's that intention in action, showing up back and mirroring to you something about your vibration to lead you back into that greater closeness in connection with yourself.
Mm, mm. And
It's
look, this, it is very powerful, and it's very practical as well. It's something as simple as having a conversation with somebody, and you're on a topic, and you realize that you feel uncomfortable within yourself about something that you're saying or
yeah,
something that you're hearing. That's a message. That's a message in you about where you're putting your attention, what you're focusing on. It can even be a message around your behavior. And the key with that is when you become aware of that, to have compassion for yourself, for the person you're talking
yes,
to allow for yourself to be okay, that you are learning, I'm learning, and to just listen to that and know that you can do things differently, to listen to what that might mean for you. It could be something as simple as, oh my goodness, I've just realized that I've been talking about somebody else in a way that could be perceived as gossip. I
yes,
didn't realize I did that. Oh my goodness. Okay, now I'm aware of that. I can tune into myself and know when I get that sensation that oh, I'm doing that, and I can now choose to do things differently.
yes,
Um, and I use that as it's a really simple example, you know, of something that we can all do. That we can find ourselves in conversations with people that we think are friendly conversation, but they're actually working on a deeper level. They're working on another vibrational level that's really out of alignment of honoring people and honoring humans for who they are,
yeah,
and having grace around everybody's journey.
yes. I think you said a key word in there, that you become aware. I think
Mm,
awareness is so important to this journey of this personal discernment, this inner discernment, and this reconnection with ourselves. It starts with those intentions, Sue, right? And those intentions invite us into a greater and a deeper sense of our own awareness of us and what we're participating in just with our attention
mm,
each
mm,
day. And right, and the
mm,
conversations we participate in with others, but oftentimes also very much with ourselves, noticing how we're talking to ourselves and being with ourselves, and just opening a greater awareness to when we wake up in the day, noticing how we feel. um, and no, not everybody wakes up in a state of euphoria and bliss per se, right? We could have
mm-hmm,
a stressful meeting the first thing on our calendar that day, and maybe that activates a sense inside us of a stress. And so allowing ourselves to have awareness of that, of what our energy is saying to us and how we're feeling in that moment, is another part of just listening and acknowledging something that's going on inside us that's trying to give us feedback about who we are. And from awareness, we can talk about this another time, but from awareness, and if we're talking about vibration and energy, because we are vibration, we are energy, we can have awareness of our energy that then helps us discern and choose an intention that we do want to feel in our day. so we can reset that experience or that programming that's running in us before we're even really awake in our day. We can just
mm,
notice that we're starting to activate in this tension in some way, or stress, or in some way just not feeling good. And if we notice that, we can take that very conscious breath. We can take that moment and set another intention for our day, that I feel good in being who I am, that I invite the light to speak through me in all my conversations today, that I invite the light to organize my day so everything is flowful and feels a little easier. And I feel supported in my journey as I walk through the day today. And so just that little reframe and that reset that comes from a level of awareness of what we're feeling. We've been so busy running here and running there. Oftentimes, I'm sure many of us, myself included still, sometimes I just, the day will get started before I've had any time to connect at that level. But the day's not over. I can catch myself an hour later and just take that few minutes and reset my day and call on the light and ask for that inner guidance system, that inner compass, to be a part and partner with me in all those experiences in my day. And it's very powerful when you realize that you're not alone, and we're all walking this path, and we all are living on the same planet, and we're all journeying home to the space inside ourselves of connectivity and our interconnectedness. And of course, this is what we've been talking about today, is that first part of that reconnection is connecting with ourself. And once we can
mm,
nurture that once we can make time for that every day, and we cultivate that every day, we begin to feel that presence inside ourselves actually partnering with us and showing up with us, um, to journey what it is that we have to do on any given day. And that's part of developing this truth and this trust inside ourselves of our inner vibration, of our inner guidance, of what we feel at a gut level about something, so that we can start to take action on that feeling and see where that leads us in the learning that we're doing with ourselves. So you've done such a great job, Sue, of like giving these kind of, just easy, accessible examples that all of us can relate to. Because sometimes when we talk about energy, and even me, I hear myself talking and I'm sharing a lot about the energy of these things. But showing up and having a conversation with your child where you're very present and you're not trying to do 10 other things at once, and you're just sitting with your child with your full attention and presence with your child, is another way of increasing that awareness, increasing that connection with yourself and with your child. And that's more of what we're talking about, of like finding those meaningful moments. The sense of meaning comes back in our life when we're cultivating these connections again, very consciously,
mm,
in our lives again. And I do think it's going to become a very important priority. That's something that is going to be valued more and more, as we have to learn how to discern the truth. When there's many, many, many versions of truth out there, we have to be able to discern what is our truth. And when our truth is connected to the light, and connected to our inner guidance system, and connected more fully to a path of service, because that's ultimately what we as spiritual beings, that's what we were originally. We served the light. And
mm,
so we're coming back into those lives of service. It feels a little foreign to us initially sometimes, until we spend more time with it and partnering with the light in our inner guidance system. It becomes like a friend we know very well. And so we're having to cultivate that relationship again so we can trust it when we need it most. Um, and this is a conversation just to get us started, really, talking about this topic and other related topics, Sue, that I know we'll talk about. But I guess I was talking about bringing in the concept of awareness is another part of the whole process of this journey of reconnecting deeply in divine relationship and divine partnership with ourselves. Um, that starts to bring more meaning in every interaction we have, whether that's with a tree, whether that's with the sky above, whether that's with the planet, or whether that's with a coworker, or whether that's with a family member, or somebody we just happened to see on the bus that day. We're all looking for this deeper connection, and it starts with cultivating that connection with ourselves. It's powerful.
It's very, very powerful. And what you're sharing around connecting with yourself, hand in hand with discernment. How can we be discerning if we don't connect in with ourselves? So
Yes.
the conversations do have to be together. You can't really talk about connecting without talking about discovering your own discernment. You
Yes.
can't talk about discernment without learning how to connect in with yourself. When you mentioned, you gave a really good example before of, talking to your child and just being present with that conversation. And the key is, if you are practiced at even just 5 minutes a day, just tuning
Yes.
in and being with yourself and connecting in and discerning yourself, when you are having that conversation with your child and you're present in that conversation, you will then tune in and discern and know what to say, what not to say, what's right in that moment, in that conversation, what's going to be the path which will be for the highest good of yourself and the highest good of that child. Sometimes that conversation is going to require you to speak your truth and be brave
Yes.
and say things and do things that may not appear comfortable. So I think it's really, really important to understand that in
Yeah.
discernment, being discerning doesn't mean always doing what's easy. Being discerning
Yes.
doesn't necessarily mean always doing something because it feels good.
Yes.
It's actually almost the opposite. Being discerning does mean at times making hard choices, doing things that require you to be brave when you actually feel incredibly vulnerable.
Yes.
Uh, because by by learning to listen to yourself and know what is true for you, know in your gut and in your heart what is the right choice for you, you
Mm.
are going to be called from time to time to make decisions and take actions that
Yeah.
aren't comfortable. The, the journey I had to return to listening to myself
Mm.
required great discomfort and
Mm.
incredible vulnerability, and was very difficult, very challenging, and brought to the surface for me all those ways and all those areas where I felt vulnerable, I felt abandoned, I felt lost.
Yeah.
But by listening in and rediscovering that when I do listen to myself, even when things are difficult, it's amazing how often the right thing turns up.
Yes.
The help appears.
Yes, and you only see that after you engage the process a few times. The first time or two or a couple rounds that you go with it, it does feel alone. It feels foreign.
Mm.
And and there is this sort of allowing ourselves to not be good at something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because these are skills that we haven't practiced in a long time. And sometimes you're going to hear something that you think is your inner voice, and it was somehow your ego snuck in there again.
Mm.
It takes time to be discerning in your own discernment, of really learning the layers of discernment, where you can get to a point where you recognize what truth is for you. Um, and so it's a deep, deep journey. And I was going to say it requires some sense of spiritual fortitude. It does require a certain level of commitment. And it definitely, it tests our resilience, but I think it actually strengthens it. It brings it out more and more. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And the more it becomes who you are, and the more it becomes, we talked earlier on, Sue, about the habits that we have, right, in our regular lives, and the greater culture, the cultural norms, and the ways that many of
Mm.
us are called to live our lives based on our conditioning here on this planet. Um, but we are called to create these new vibrational habits, these new ways that feel better to us, even if they feel different at first. They are en route to feeling better and more whole and more joyful. And I don't think we've said this word tonight, Sue, as the word authenticity. The more you can sort of show up inside yourself, knowing more of who you are because you tested yourself, or a situation showed up that tested you. And whatever that feedback was, it helped you feel and tune in with greater awareness of the energies you're playing with and the energies you're learning from right now. So, there's a lot to this journey of inner discernment. It's not something you just say, oh yes, I'm going to be discerning. It's not quite just a decision we make. It, it's truly a journey into these much deeper soul skills that we're recovering. We are doubling back for these greater abilities we have inside us that have just been so long dormant. But the times that we're in are definitely calling out this ability to look inside yourself for what feels right, what feels aligned, what resonates. Do you have a good way of explaining the word resonate or resonance?
Uh, for me, resonance is the essence of vibration.
Yeah.
So every word has a resonance to it. So there's a vibration. Uh, the example I'm actually going to use is a language example. So
Okay.
some people may be familiar with the language of Sanskrit,
Yes.
which is an ancient language. And Sanskrit is known as a vibrational language. English is known as a descriptive or prescriptive language. Every word, every character or letter in Sanskrit contains the vibrational essence of what is being spoken.
Mm.
So if you were to speak the word pen in Sanskrit, it would contain the vibrational essence of the pen itself.
Wow.
When we say pen in English, we are describing an object that we use to write with. We're not speaking the vibrational essence of it.
Wow.
So resonance is the vibrational essence of everything in the universe. So when you tune into something, you tune into the vibrational essence of it or the resonance of it.
Wow.
And that is something that some people are more aware of than others. And it's perfectly okay if you are or you aren't. But when I speak of resonating with something, I'm referring to the essence of it. So I'm resonating with the essence of what someone is saying to me. I'm resonating with the essence of a course that someone offers. I'm resonating with the essence of the truth behind a story that's in a book. It's the essence, it's the elixir, it's the source of
Yes.
what it is that you're tuning into. And that's the key to discernment. When you
Yes.
are confronted with truths in society that are unexpected, where
Yes.
things are presented in the media that you never thought you'd see, when something happens in your office that's so unexpected and so unplanned that you never thought it would happen,
Yes.
it's the ability to then connect back into yourself, and from there listen and tune in to where that resonance, where that essence, where that elixir of truth lies for you. And it may or it may not lie in the same place as other people.
Yes.
And that's really important. It's okay for what's right for you to be different from other people, because it's only when you do that and become aware of that in yourself that you will truly be able to create a world for yourself that flows for you, that creates for you what you want. There may be bumps along the way. I'm sure there will be, as there is for all of us.
Yes.
But we are truly moving into a time where already our lives are filled with media and news and world events that are shocking, that are revealing and talking about things that can be deeply challenging, very deeply challenging. And we're all going to have to ride that wave.
Yes.
Being able to tune in, connect with yourself, and know your own discernment will help support you in that. And by the way, what you may find is that when that happens, when the news becomes public, when something is said out loud, you won't be so surprised. I've had many examples in my life where something shocking has happened around me, but I was aware on some level that it was going to happen, or I kind of knew already. No one had said anything, but I was aware. I could
Yes.
see what was unfolding. It's almost like a prescience where you can see what's
Yes.
the potential is going to turn out like.
Yes.
And the value in that is not about fortune telling in the traditional sense,
Right.
although that can and has served people in
Yes.
many ways. It's actually about enabling yourself to remain centered and at peace in trying and turbulent situations.
Yes.
Because the more that we can discern what's right for us, the easier it is for us to be able to stay centered in ourselves,
Yes.
to maintain hope and self-belief.
Mm.
So it's both. It's not one or the other. It's chicken and egg.
Yes.
Having a tool to enable yourself to connect in to your own being,
Yes.
having the discernment to tune in and know what's right for you,
Yes.
go hand in hand.
Yes. And having the intention and the willingness and the commitment to cultivate that again. I think that is truly the invitation that is being offered to us by the Earth Mother, by Gaia herself, to begin to start that process of coming home inside ourselves to that deeper connection again. And all that you just talked about is so important. And I do think they go hand in hand. Definitely. And so I think this was a fantastic conversation, Sue. And I think there are going to be many more other conversations, and we can explore we can unpack any one of these things that we talked about and probably have a lively conversation on just that one thing. So, the concepts of awareness and resilience and resonance, all these other essences, these word essences, are part of what create a bigger package of support for us as we journey these next few weeks, months, and into 2020 and beyond. And as our world continues to change, and we have to be able to turn and look inside, not look outside ourselves for the answers, but to look inside ourselves for where the true answers are and where the true discernment is and where that true resonance is for us. And when we can get that feedback and when we can begin to trust that feedback, we then usually get the guidance for how can I be the light in my day in this way that brings more light to this planet. It's kind of like that concept, Sue, that when you get on an airplane, they always say, put your oxygen mask on first and then help the children and other people around you, right? This is part of putting that oxygen mask on first so that we can be prepared to ground ourselves in that light, ground ourselves in what we know to be true inside, even if on the outside everything's chaotic for a while. We can trust that groundedness and that calmness inside ourselves in the storm, and we can help other people. And that's where the service comes in. We can be a source of light and support and hope and groundedness for other people that haven't yet cultivated these tools for themselves, but they'll learn from us by simply our being it. And so all these things are so important at this time.
They are. Look, and thank you so much for the opportunity to share and talk with you. And look, I really
Yes,
hope that what we've talked about will enrich people and support everybody in their own journey of awakening, and provide opportunities for people to delve further into this. You're absolutely correct that this conversation is very rich, and we've barely touched the surface,
yes,
but it is a really important discussion for us to be having
yes,
collectively. And I think more and more and more people are going to be challenged and thrown about by the happenings of the planet if they don't have tools and techniques to enable them to look after themselves. And I want to be able to help people with that.
yes,
I've, like everybody else, my life has had ups and downs, and I know the value of having access to tools and people who can support you through the dark times as well as the good.
yes. Most definitely. And I'm grateful for you, for your sharing of today. And I look forward to more conversations of just the wisdom that you've gained in your journey. That's what we do in the return of some of our journeys when we've gone through a cycle or two of some of this growth, this personal growth, is that we do collect some tools and some techniques and some things that worked for us. And part of that return in the journey is to bring that information back to share with others. And I really appreciate you doing that with us today, Sue. I know it adds a richness to all of our conversations that we offer with Whole Soul School and Foundation. But I really value the wisdom and the insights that you bring through, Sue. So thank you for being with us today. I want to thank our listeners for tuning in and spending time with us. And we hope to have Sue back sometime again very soon. And if you can go to our website, if you want to see more of our podcasts, our blog articles, or our videos, you can go to www.wholesoulschoolandfoundation.org. You can find us on YouTube, and we're also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. If anybody feels called to give a donation, you can do that directly through our website, and we appreciate every donation and every donor who lends their positive energy to our projects and our mission here at Whole Soul School and Foundation. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Sue, and we wish everybody blessings in their journey this next month and beyond. So blessings, everyone.
Thank you.